I can't wait to see the ratings for that. My God. Unrivaled League is in all kinds of damn trouble. Why so quiet? Don't you find it odd that the league and the fire around it?
Something strange is happening in the world of women's basketball. And if you aren't looking closely, you might miss the moment a multi-million-dollar empire starts to crumble. Just 1 year ago, you couldn't scroll through social media without seeing the name Unrivaled. It was the player-owned revolution that was supposed to change the sport forever. Founded by WNBA icons Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, they promised the world massive salaries, equity for every player, and a high-octane 3-on-3 format that would bridge the gap during the long WNBA offseason.
Project B has put the writing on the wall for Unrivaled. In case you did not know, Unrivaled comes back next Monday.
The first season was a viral sensation, racking up nearly 12 million viewers and generating $27 million in revenue. But as we stand on the doorstep of Season 2, the fire has been replaced by a chilling silence. If you feel like you haven't heard a single word about the league's return, you aren't alone. The media hype hasn't just slowed down, it has essentially disappeared. A search for recent news on the league reveals a digital graveyard with major articles dated months ago, leaving fans to wonder if the league is being intentionally buried. This isn't just a marketing hiccup, it is the first sign of a structural collapse. When a league that was once embraced by every major media outlet suddenly becomes a side note, it usually means the money, the stars, or the vision is starting to fail. The metrics from the inaugural season were supposed to be a launch pad, but they've become a heavy burden to carry.
2 of them on True TV. In the middle of the day. That's the day all the kiddies go back to school from Christmas break.
Season 1 averaged 221,000 viewers, with a peak of nearly 400,000 for the one-on-one tournament. These were impressive numbers for a startup, but they were built on the novelty of a new format and the promise of a star-studded future. As the league prepares to tip off its second season on January 5, 2026, it is facing a reality where that novelty has worn off and the promised stars are nowhere to be found. We are witnessing the fragility of innovation in real time. The lack of movement or excitement isn't just a feeling, it's a data-backed reality. While the first season was bolstered by constant press releases and a massive social media push, Season 2 has been described by some as a silent launch. Even with the addition of college phenom Paige Bueckers, who is reportedly making more than $350,000 for the 8-week season, the league is struggling to regain its footing in the national conversation. But the missing media coverage is just the tip of the iceberg, because the biggest names in the sport have decided that Unrivaled isn't worth their time. In professional sports, talent is the only currency that truly matters, and right now, Unrivaled is bankrupt. The league's entire business model was predicated on the idea that they could capture the big 3 of the WNBA's new era: Caitlin Clark, A'ja Wilson, and Angel Reese. These are the players who drive ratings, sell jerseys, and dominate the cultural zeitgeist. Without them, you don't have a league, you have an expensive exhibition. The league's leadership knew this, which is why they reportedly offered Caitlin Clark a Messi-like deal that included 7-figure compensation, equity, and a share of the league's revenue. It was an offer designed to be unrefusable, but she refused. Despite the many conversations and the fact that Clark shares an agent with league co-founder Nafisa Collier, the face of the sport decided to stay home. Officially, the reason given was her need to recover from quad and groin injuries that limited her to just 13 games in her previous WNBA season. However, there is a deeper story here about brand control and the physical toll of a year-round basketball grind. Clark reportedly spent her previous winter training like a psychopath against male practice players at the Fever facility. For her, the basketball grind of an organized 3-on-3 league was a risk she wasn't willing to take, even for millions of dollars. A'ja Wilson followed a similar path, opting for rest and body maintenance over a quick payday. Wilson has been vocal about the importance of her off-season, using it as a period to add new dimensions to her game that she simply can't develop in a competitive 3-on-3 environment. To the league, her absence is a massive blow to their credibility. If the 3-time MVP doesn't see the value in the Unrivaled model, why should the fans? This rejection highlights a growing divide between the league's mission to keep players stateside and the top 1% of earners who simply don't need the money to survive. Then there's the loss of Angel Reese, which might be the most damaging of all for Season 2 engagement. Reese was the reigning Defensive Player of the Year for Unrivaled and a primary driver of the league's viral presence. Her hand injury, sustained in the regular season finale of the first season, forced her into a long recovery process that ultimately kept her off the 2026 rosters. Without Reese's personality and rivalry-building potential, the league loses its edge. While the league claims to be in productive negotiations with other stars, the reality is that the 48 players currently signed are missing the transformative star power required to justify their $340 million valuation. While names like Paige Buchers and Kelsey Plum are massive additions, they are stepping into a league that is increasingly being ignored by the mainstream. The league's hope was that the 3-on-3 format would provide enough game reps to keep players sharp without the wear and tear of a traditional season, but the high injury rate in year one proved otherwise. If players like Reese and Ionescu are getting hurt or leaving early to fulfill prior commitments, the legitimacy and credibility of the product starts to bleed out. But the star power problem is nothing compared to the global war that is about to break out. Just as Unrivaled was starting to get comfortable as the premier domestic off-season option, a much larger, more mysterious threat appeared on the horizon, codenamed Project B. This new global basketball league is backed by tech titans and billions of dollars in potential venture capital. While Unrivaled is focused on a small 3-on-3 intimate experience in Miami, Project B is planning a massive 5-on-5 international tour across Europe, Asia, and Latin America. This isn't just a different format, it's an entirely different league of competition. The financial discrepancy between the two leagues is staggering. Unrivaled made headlines by paying an average salary of $220,000, which was revolutionary for the time. But Project B has upped the ante to a level that Unrivaled simply cannot match. Reports indicate that Project B is offering 7-figure salaries starting at $2 million annually, with multi-year deals that could reach $10 million or more. This is generational wealth money, the kind of compensation that can convince even the most loyal WNBA veteran to abandon the domestic dream for a global tour. The recruitment of WNBL president Nneka Ogwumike to Project B was the shot heard round the world for the basketball establishment. By securing the most influential voice in the players' union, Project B sent a clear message. The future isn't stateside 3-on-3, it's global 5-on-5. Other all-stars like Alyssa Thomas, Jonquel Jones, and Jewel Lloyd have already committed, effectively gutting the potential expansion pool for Unrivaled. If the best players in the world are being treated as partners with equity and multi-million-dollar checks in Project B, the equity offered by a startup in Miami starts to look like a much smaller prize. The timing of Project B's announcement was no accident. It coincided with the most contentious labor talks in the history of the WNBA, positioning itself as a tech-like alternative with tech-like returns. While Unrivaled founders like Brianna Stewart try to claim there is no shade toward Project B, the reality is that they are now fighting for the same limited pool of sponsorship dollars and broadcast attention. If Project B delivers on its promises, Unrivaled risks being relegated to a developmental league or a secondary option for players who aren't quite elite enough for the global tour. But even as this external war rages, the league's primary foundation is being shaken by corporate drama that it has absolutely no control over. You can have the best product in the world, but if nobody can find where to watch it, the business is doomed. Unrivaled's 6-year, $100 million broadcast deal with Warner Bros. Discovery was supposed to be their golden ticket to the mainstream. By placing games on TNT, truTV, and Max, the league was guaranteed a seat at the table with the biggest players in sports media. But right now, that table is being flipped over. Warner Bros. Discovery is currently the target of a hostile takeover bid that could dismantle the very networks Unrivaled calls home. Paramount Skydance has launched an all-cash bid to acquire the entire WBD media empire, while Netflix has emerged as a winner in a bidding war for the company's studio and streaming assets. If Netflix wins, they have zero interest in the linear cable channels like TNT and truTV, which are the primary homes for Unrivaled broadcasts. This would leave the future of TNT Sports very much up in the air, with some analysts predicting a separation or liquidation of the legacy cable assets by April 2020. For a startup league that relies almost entirely on media revenue, this is an existential crisis. The uncertainty doesn't stop with corporate ownership. The current leadership at WBD has already started treating the Unrivaled schedule like an afterthought. For Season 2, a significant portion of the games have been relegated to 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Mondays on truTV. This is the time of day when the core audience is at school or at work, making it nearly impossible to build a live following. Critics have noted that if the league manages to draw even 100,000 viewers in that time slot, it would be a miracle. When your media partner is burying your content in dead air slots, the writing is on the wall. This broadcast strategy suggests that WBD may be losing faith in the 3-on-3 gimmick as a viable ratings driver. During the first season, ratings reportedly halved from start to finish, leading to concerns that the format simply doesn't have the staying power of a traditional 5-on-5 game. If the new owners of WBD decide that Unrivaled is just a TV show that can be easily canceled, the league will have no fallback option. They don't have the NBA to fund them, and they don't have a history of loyal fan bases to keep them afloat. They are hanging by a thread, and that thread is currently being cut by corporate raiders. If you want to understand why a league is failing, you don't look at their marketing, you look at their logistics. Unrivaled's decision to base its entire operation in a single city, Miami, was sold as a sustainable and equitable model that would eliminate the grueling travel schedule of the WNBA. But what it actually created was a bubble that isolates the players from their fans. The league's primary venue, the Sephora Arena in Medley, Florida, has a capacity of just 850 people. To put that in perspective, a high school basketball game in Indiana often draws more people. This glorified TV studio model means that the league is almost entirely dependent on people watching on their screens. But as we've seen with the Monday afternoon time slots, people aren't watching. And when you look at the ticket prices for the few people who can attend, it's clear the league is struggling to find a balance between exclusivity and accessibility. Tickets for the opening day in Miami are listed as high as $323 for the night session, with average tickets hovering around $370. For an 8-week startup league playing 3-on-3 on a compressed court, these are premium prices for a product that hasn't yet proven its long-term value. The league is attempting to fix this bubble problem with a one-night road show in Philadelphia on January 30th, 2026, but even this feels like a desperate attempt to show movement. Moving 30-plus players and staff for a single night of games is a logistical headache that many believe won't last. If the goal was to build fan engagement, a single night in Philly isn't the answer. The fans want to see their favorite players in their own markets, but the current model makes that impossible. Unrivaled is essentially barnstorming without travel, a strategy that limits growth and all but guarantees the league will remain a niche passion project for a small group of hardcore fans. But what about the players? The league was supposed to be a haven for them, yet injury management became the defining story of the inaugural season. Players were forced to play through ACL and meniscus tears, and the lack of a developmental pool meant teams were often shorthanded. For Season 2, the league has finally added 6 developmental spots to act as on-call substitutes. While this is a step in the right direction, it reveals a deeper truth. The 3-on-3 format is physically demanding in a way the founders didn't anticipate. If the league's biggest stars are constantly in a walking boot or undergoing surgeries, the player-first promise starts to feel like a trap. When you hear that a league is valued at $340 million and has generated $27 million in revenue, it sounds like a success story. But in the world of venture capital, these numbers can be highly deceptive. Unrivaled's business model is built on massive upfront expenses, multi-million-dollar player salaries, equity shares, and a high-production TV broadcast. This isn't a business that is making a profit. It's a passion project that is burning through investor cash in the hopes that a massive media rights deal will eventually save them. The problem is that the product itself is hard to define. Is it a professional sports league, or is it a reality TV show about basketball players? The league markets itself on paying players more and staying home, but as critics have pointed out, that isn't a business strategy, it's an expense. A successful league needs to fulfill a demand for its audience, but right now, Unrivaled mostly solves a problem for the people receiving its money. If the fans don't care about the 3-on-3 format, and the star players like Clark and Wilson aren't there to draw them in, the revenue from sponsorships and merchandise will eventually dry up. The league's investors, which include big names like Stephen Curry, Ashton Kutcher, and Michael Phelps, are willingly throwing large sums of money at the concept, but the history of startup leagues is littered with similar stories of early hype followed by rapid collapse. If Unrivaled doesn't increase its ratings during Season 2, the TV contract's opt-out clause could be triggered after 2 more seasons, leaving the league with no home and no path to profitability. We are watching a high-stakes gamble where the founders are betting that the talent level alone will dictate fan engagement, despite history proving that connections and rivalries are what actually sustain a sport. The most controversial element of the Unrivaled story isn't about basketball at all. It's about power. The league was founded by executive leaders of the Players' Union at the exact moment that the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement was set to expire. This created an immediate conflict of interest. Are Nafisa Collier and Breanna Stewart building a league to help their fellow players, or are they building a rival league to gain leverage in their negotiations with WNBA owners? The timing, as they admit, was perfect. The players are currently seeking a transformational deal that includes a massive increase in revenue sharing and a jump in base salaries. Unrivaled has become the bargaining chip in this fight. By proving that players can earn over $200,000 for 8 weeks of work stateside, the union is effectively telling WNBA leadership to pay them what they're worth, or they'll just play for themselves. This has led to bitter talks and allegations of disparaging remarks regarding the players' value outside of the WNBA platform. But there is a dark side to this leverage. If the WNBA owners decide to call the players' bluff, they could demand exclusivity in the next contract. This would force every WNBA player to sign a document promising they will not play in competing leagues like Unrivaled or Project B. If that happens, the Unrivaled rosters would be wiped out overnight. The players would have to choose between a stable WNBA salary and a startup salary with equity in a league that might not exist in 2 years. This is a game of existential poker, and right now the WNBA owners have the deeper pockets. The tension is so high that some believe a strike is not only possible but likely. If the WNBA season is delayed or canceled, Unrivaled could become an impromptu full-season league to keep players paid and on TV, effectively acting as an alternative strike. But this strategy only works if the fans are willing to follow. If the fans see Unrivaled as a pawn in a labor dispute rather than a legitimate sport, they will tune out, and the players will lose the only leverage they have left. The next few months aren't just about Season 2, they are about the future of the WNBA itself. Is Unrivaled actually collapsing, or is it just undergoing a painful reality check? The truth lies somewhere in the middle. The league has proven that women's basketball can attract big-name investors and significant initial viewership, but it has failed to solve the fundamental problem of how to sustain that interest without its biggest icons. As Season 2 approaches, the league is trapped between a global competitor offering 10 times the money and a media partner that is literally falling apart. The silent launch and the Monday afternoon schedule are signs of a league that has lost its momentum. When fans are expressing disinterest before the second season even starts, you know you have a marketing crisis. The novelty of 3-on-3 is fading, the high-value offers have been rejected, and the corporate raiders are at the gate. While the founders have built something revolutionary, they may have built it on a foundation of shifting sand. If Unrivaled is to survive, it must become something more than a TV show or a bargaining chip. It needs to find a way to connect with fans in their own cities, lower its astronomical ticket prices, and convince the world that 3-on-3 basketball is a legitimate sport and not just an all-star gimmick. But with Season 2 already being ignored by the mainstream media and the biggest stars staying home, the clock is ticking faster than ever. We might be watching the last days of the player-owned dream, or we might be watching the birth of a new era. But for now, the only thing we hear is the silence. The story of Unrivaled is a cautionary tale about the limits of hype and the reality of business. You can have millions of dollars and the support of the world's best athletes, but if you don't have a clear product that the fans actually want to watch, the collapse is inevitable. As the players take the court on January 5th, they won't just be fighting for a championship, they'll be fighting for the very survival of their league. And this time, the whole world might not be watching.